Hello, everybody, and welcome to week one of Writing About Literature. I'm Dr. Susan Pickford, and I will be on this journey with you for the next few weeks. And I hope that it is successful for you. My goal is always to help my students be successful. So if I say something in this video that you don't understand, can't find a resource for, I try to be very proactive and have everything for you, but alas, I am not perfect either. So feel free to reach out to me and we'll get into that. Some ways that you can reach out to me. So you are either in my English 102.6.7 course or my English 102.6.8 course. Both of them are running concurrently and cover the same material. So more often than not, like today, this week, my video will be the same for both courses. So anything I have in in group 6-7, I will have in group 6-8. So keep that in mind. So we're just going to go ahead and start. And when you click on your course, you will be greeted by the home page. You'll see my picture there and my bio. There's a short video here that you can watch. It gives you some background on things to how to operate the course and find anything that you may need. I am not on campus, so not only are you taking this course asynchronously, but I'm about an hour and a half away from Columbia College, so I don't have office hours. You can text me at 843-229-3881, or you can email me at spickford@columbiasc.edu. So when you get into the coursework for writing about literature, the easiest thing for you to do is always head to the modules. So I always have the modules set up week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we keep on going and have everything already, almost everything already preset. And what you'll want to do is click on week 1 tasks and assignments. And once I'm finished with this video, you will see the link for this video right here. So anything that I use that I think will benefit you and I want you to have a copy of, I'll list underneath here. But then you also see everything that you're supposed to do this week, your initial discussion post, as well as a reading quiz. So let's get into what we're going to be doing in this module. The biggest thing that you're going to be doing is dealing with what does it mean to read and write about literature. So let's see if we can find our textbooks here. I have already lost my issues. Hello. There we go. My materials, I must not have seen it. And the page should be loading. Skip this. Let's go to my shelf. We want core text. Your textbook for this course is Literature, a Portable Anthology. Hopefully it'll populate in just a second. Of course it doesn't want to populate right now. There we go. Yeah, we know something went wrong, but we got it. All right, so, ladies and gentlemen, let's see if we can refresh here. You think maybe? Okay, there we go. All right, so easy ways to navigate the textbook. You can go to your page numbers down here. You can also attack the table of contents right here. And we're going to go to part 1, chapter 1. So this is an introduction to reading and writing about literature. And a lot of people say, I'm not a good reader, or I don't like to read. Well, that's probably only a half-truth. What it probably is that you had an English teacher in high school or even middle school or even younger than that told you what you were thinking while you were reading was wrong. And I guess in some cases that may be true. For example, if I had a student tell me that Charlotte's Web was about pink elephants, we'd have to have a conversation. It's about a pig. Sorry, I don't think that's a spoiler alert for anybody, but if it is, Charlotte's Web is about a pig, not an elephant. So what happens is we lose our ability to think critically because of a misconception that we've had about our learning or our thinking. And you probably read all the time. You read texts, you read your emails, you read a Reddit post. You can read and you can process information, but you've been taught that literature is something to be afraid of, and it's not. Um, but it does require thinking, and that's where it comes in difficult. You might not have a pattern to how to think through the text that you're reading. So that's one of the things that we're going to talk about. I'm going to give you some tools to help you read and be successful through literature. And I'm going to even get you a little bit started on some of my expectations and a few resources for that. But, and I will say this, the more and more I read, and even things that I have revisited. I'm 52, graduated high school in 92. We don't have to talk about that. But anyway, I have read things, gone back and read things that I read in high school that I read now as an adult with grown children, and I'm like, oh, this makes so much more sense to me now because I'm in a different mindset. I'm prepared to listen and to absorb and to take in information. And I don't care what side of the political seesaw that you lean, just go read. Just go read Animal Farm in 1984. And if you don't see parallels, then we can have a conversation. I'm not telling you what to think one way or the other. I'm just begging you to think. And that's what this course is going to be working on. Why we need to read literature is to make those connections to the world around us. People use literature most often as an allegory. They set a stage in one place, but make it parallel to another. So many of you might have read or watched The Crucible in high school. The Crucible is a Puritan tale of witchcraft or perceived witchcraft in a community in Salem and the Salem witch trials. But what the playwright did was actually use the political arena of Puritan Salem to discuss 1950s American McCarthyism. So he gave it to them in a roundabout way, and that's one thing that Dickinson says in one of her poems is that the truth has to be kind of revealed a little at a time. You can't be blunt with it sometimes because people don't want to see it that way. So you have to kind of slide it in. And so the Crucible is the 1950s version of saying, hey, people, pay attention. Can you find parallels between this current event of McCarthyism and the Salem witch trials? And once readers are able to make that connection, they can't unsee it. But seeing it in a different light from a different time period allows you to be a little bit more objective, and you can see that, oh, that's not good. Whereas before you might have thought something differently, but now that it's in a different time period, that makes a little more sense. But the reading and writing go hand in hand. It's one thing to read it and understand it, and particularly because this is an asynchronous course and we can't have class discussions, it's also important that you communicate those ideas. So that's where the writing comes in. If you have these critical thinking moments as you're reading, one, you need to write them down so that you can remember them. But two, you need to be able to express those ideas in a clear, efficient, succinct manner with an audience. And that's why you're going to write. So I enjoy this course because I really get to focus on some really meaningful pieces of literature that I think are highly impactful. I have covered them all the way from ninth grade to level 300 courses, some of these pieces of literature. So they would not last as long as they do or resonate as much as they do if there wasn't a lot of truth in them. So that's a really big thing to consider here. And I've already talked to you about the difficulty that we have with literature. So, like, again, I'm not going to go through all this thing. You're going to read it yourself. I mean, I trust you. You're big people. You're grown-ups. My high schoolers, I might have to do a little bit more with it. But there is a point to good reading. One, I think it needs to be something that's interesting or worth your while. So I can promise you that in my heart of hearts, I'm not going to put anything boring in front of you. There's always some kind of twist or some kind of neatness or some kind of highly compassionate moment that resonates, or that I hope resonates with you, because it resonates with me. So good reading, I think, comes from enjoying the literature. But just like you rewatch your favorite film, I am a huge Indiana Jones fan. And once a month at least, I have an Indiana Jones marathon. And I can pretty much quote any of those movies in my sleep. Same thing with Shawshank Redemption. I watch them at least once a month. Ooh, and Jurassic Park. All of those once a month. And yes, I can have binge movie days where that's all that's on the TV. My husband and children know just to bypass me when they come through the house. So, just like you rewatch a favorite movie, you can find that same value in literature. And so, being a literature teacher, one of the things that I find about rereading something is no matter what I've done, how much I think I know about the story, when I read it and experience it with another person, they bring a lens to the page that I didn't have before. So, in 30 years of teaching, I have never not been amazed by something that one of my students has said, where they have a particular take on something and we discuss it and we have these grand conversations, and they bring more weight to the story than even I thought there was possible. So again, I mean, I've read Romeo and Juliet, let's just assume once a year since I've been teaching, even though I have multiple classes at high school. I've taught Romeo and Juliet at least 30 times, and every time a student will pull something else out of that. So for them, it might be a one and done kind of read, but for me, it's reached that close reading level and that rereading and revisiting, particularly when something is really, really good. I'm going to touch on the idea of this hidden meaning just a little bit. This is where I kind of told you, and I experienced this too. I had the English teacher that, I love reading, and I was great at reading, and I could read anything, and I could pass all kinds of state tests. But I might not always answer the question the way the teacher wanted me to answer the question. Back in those days, if you were wrong, you were wrong. Well, it took me getting into college and beginning to teach myself when I realized, there are some gray areas. There is ambiguity to approach. There is right. There is another right. And like I said with the pink elephant in Charlotte's Web, there could be a completely wrong, but that's a whole other issue. It takes us having this discussion. So I would miss the questions like, what does the feather symbolize? Or choose a symbol. Well, what if my symbol's not your symbol? Or what if I don't recognize the significance of the feather? Or whatever the case may be. And so I would end up feeling defeated sometimes in these classes because I was told I was wrong. Then I learned later on, I'm not wrong. I'm just not expressing myself well enough, or I don't have the evidence to support my case well enough. And that's where rereading comes in handy. I am able to mark it up. I am able to clearly define points of argument that support my position and when it might be over. And one of the things that I tend to focus on is the rule of three. If you can find 3 things in a piece of literature that support your position, then you have a position. It might not be my position, but you've got enough evidence to back it up. And when you're citing that text, that's something that you want to pay attention to. If you can prove it, it can exist. So the book offers you some questions to look for when you're close reading. And a lot of times it's going to take more than one read. And what's so funny is I'm giving you guys this assignment. There are tons of things online that you can find. You're going to take it, and you may or may not AI the hound out of it to find all these things. But I'm telling you, you're going to do more work Googling and reading to find something of value than if you just sat down and read the story. I can promise you, your 1 or 2 nuggets that you get out of reading it on your own, if you're really reading it, are going to be so much more valuable to you and to me than what you would find online. Because it's all about finding the extra special. So one of the ways that you're going to do that is you're going to show me your annotations. For this particular part, and you'll be able to annotate the book, that is going to be your call for this section this time. I'm not requiring this, but I'm going to show you a few samples of what that looks like. And then you do have a discussion post on the first 3 chapters. So it would behoove you to annotate. So you might want to pay attention a little bit later so you know how to approach this information. But pretty much this is where we're heading. Now, I'm going to tell you not to do this right here. It says underline, circle, or highlight passages. I'm going to tell you very plainly. If you underline and don't tell me why you underline it, that just tells me you're sober. If you highlight it, that just tells me that you like color. You and the person looking at your annotations need to be able to see and follow your train of thought. So here is an example of what annotations might look like for the prologue of Romeo and Juliet. And you heard me mention that a little while ago. So you can see how this person, they have underlined things. They have circled things. No highlighter here, sorry. But they've defined them. They've clarified them. They've let me know what's going on. They've paraphrased. They even put the rhyme scheme down here. So they've highlighted, or they've circled big words. Break, fatal, piteous, death. Those are kind of negative sounding. So once we see them in isolation like that, we start to notice a trend. Because what happens at the very beginning, I always ask kids, what is Romeo and Juliet about? And they'll tell me that it's a love story. Because they totally forget that the tragedy of Romeo and Juliet is the actual title. So they've got this idea of hearts and flowers. And then we come read this. And I tell them, okay, go highlight the really positive words in green. And then underline the negative words in red. Guys, what do you think they have more of on their page once they've done this? They see the red, not as the hearts and flowers. They see the red as bad, death, blood, ancient grudge. I mean, they get all of that stuff, and they see it, and it just pops for them. So, annotations look like that. Now, this sheet I have attached for you in the section in your textbook. Let me go back to the dashboard real quick and go to the course. Sorry, I went to things, modules. I have attached this in week 1 tasks and assignments under resources. So you have access to this sheet that I'm showing you right now. And this is just something that I threw together kind of to give you a little bit of scaffolding. Tells you how to look at that close read and to write while you're thinking. Things that you can do. So I tend to tell my students the first time, just go through and put signs, pluses, minuses, exclamation marks, question marks. Go back and look at it the next time if you need to, and then define why you put that plus sign. What was it that you agreed with? What did you like about it? What made you excited about that part? What was it you didn't like? What was it that stumped you? What was it that seemed incongruous to anything else you've looked at? What did you connect it with? Why is that a very important phrase to you or word to you? And even what questions you have. Why is the character doing this? Because guess what's going to happen towards the end of the story? You're going to have answers to some of your questions. But if you're not paying attention to what your questions are, you're not setting your own path. That's what's really, really important. So at the end of that, you need to be able to summarize what you've read. And don't kill yourself. I'm not asking you to turn this sheet in. I'm telling you that this is a suggestion for how to annotate. So, like me, if you have the electronic textbook and so you can't actually annotate on the page, like what you saw here, then you could print this off and write on it. You can also just write your annotations. Maybe your high school was a Cornell Notes high school, and so you understand the power of Cornell Notes. Anything like that that's going to show me that you were tracking your thinking. Any of those are going to suffice for what you do this week. So let's dig a little bit deeper then here. Let me see where I'm at. Oh, right here. Sorry. Okay, so after reading chapters 1, 2, and 3 here, so the role of good reading is what we're doing right now, and then the writing process, we're going to talk about that too. You'll have a few assignments for that, but you can read that. Like I said, you're grown-ups. I don't have to read that to you. Print off the sheet, use it on a sheet of notebook paper, white printer paper, it doesn't matter to me, but you need to annotate. So, I'm going to help you out a little bit here. Now, yes, I'm cheating because I'm using technology, but I also have my degree. So, I am also not providing you my full copy of this because, honey, I got like 30 questions with it. But I wanted to show you this first section and walk you through this first section of the story just to give you an idea of what you need to be doing as you're reading. So the first question over here asks you, the reader, what comes to mind when you think of the lottery? Well, perhaps you might say something along the lines of ton of money. Now look at me. Y'all saw me hit red on that, and then I want to go red. I'm trying to be all nice and neat and show y'all something here. What? You pick it. There we go. All right, so tons of money, good fortune. I always think that there will be signs, like if I can get a pool money, in-ground pool money. That's what I'm gonna put. That's what it means to me. In-ground pool money. That's what lottery means to me. So, okay, we've got this idea. The lottery, ton of money, good fortune, in-ground pool, good times. So, let's read. The morning of June 27th was clear and sunny with the fresh warmth of a full summer day. The flowers were blossoming profusely and the grass was richly green. The people of the village began to gather on the square between the post office and the bank around 10 o'clock. In some towns, there were so many people that the lottery took 2 days and had to be started on June 26th. But in this village, where there were only about 300 people, the whole lottery took less than 2 hours, so it could begin at 10 o'clock in the morning and still be through in time to allow the villagers to get home for noon dinner. Well, y'all look at me, I can't even read. I'm trying to teach y'all. So, let's pause right there. Good place to pause. After the first paragraph, we have an introduction. 99% of the time, the story is going to introduce the setting. Setting is usually important because it might set the tone. So, what do we have in the setting here? Well, June 27th tells me it's summer. Oh, yep, here we go. Full summer day. What else tells me that it's summer? Let's see. We have a lot of people. Town square, so people are gathering. Oh, we have flowers blossoming. Grass is green. So, I've got a little good stuff going on here. So, where's the setting? Town square. In the summer. List words or phrases? Well, I just did that, right? So, question 4. Based on the description of the setting in this paragraph, what is the mood? Well, let's see. We got a festival going on. They got the lottery being held. They do it every year. They were starting in the morning. They could get home for noon dinner, so they got some business to attend, but then they can get back. So it could be a 2-day affair. I think it's a nice, clear day. So when we look at question 5, the description of the lottery is meant to make readers feel what? I read that first paragraph. Did you feel any suspicion? I didn't feel any suspicion. I saw it as pleasant. Okay, we'll hold on to B for just a minute. Certain something bad will happen? I don't know if I saw that. The lottery is very important. Well, maybe it's a yearly event. Because sometimes it takes 2 days to work this out in some of the other villages. So now I'd have to look a little bit more to decide between B and D. So I'll let you try to figure that part out. The children assembled first, of course. School was recently over for the summer, and the feeling of liberty sat uneasily on most of them. They tended to gather together quietly for a while before they broke into boisterous play, and their talk was still of the classroom and the teacher, of books and reprimands. So, still seeing summer, still seeing children gathering together just after school let out, so it's not been too long since school was gone. Feelings of liberty sat uneasily on most of them, so they're not used to not having anything to do for their day. So they're gathering together, they're quiet, hanging out, before they break into boisterous play, so that's a good thing. And their talk was still in the classroom, so they're still talking about events that just occurred. So, I'm going back over there. Am I seeing anything that changes my mind? Not really. Might still be torn about B and D. But now I'm getting to this part where it says, cite or highlight words or phrases from this section that support your previous answer. I still don't have an answer, so I might need to read a little bit more. Bobby Martin had already stuffed his pockets full of stones, and the other boys soon followed his example, selecting the smoothest and roundest stones. Bobby and Henry Jones and Dickie Delacroix, the villagers pronounced his name Delacroix, eventually made a great pile of stones in one corner of the square and guarded against the raids of the other boys. The girls stood aside, talking among themselves, looking over their shoulders that rolled in the dust or clung to the hands of their older brothers or sisters. So, here's your hint number 1. I cannot tell you enough. Names matter. Names always matter. The title of the story matters. Names that are mentioned in a story matter. And, rule of thumb, if an object shows up one time, it just shows up. If an object shows up 2 times, you need to start tilting your head, kind of like a dog who's not quite sure what he's looking at. If an object shows up 3 times, listen to me carefully, people. That's a symbol. Did y'all hear that? That's a symbol. So, what word showed up in this one paragraph 3 times? Or more? Stone. 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 So, we have stones. Now, I don't know what you think about stones, but when I think about boys gathering stones, I think about a couple of things. I think if they're gathering stones in a great pile of stones, they might be getting ready to start King of the Mountain. But they're also getting these that are the size that they can stuff in their pockets, and they're looking for the smoothest and roundest stones. See this right here? So I'm wondering if this is telling me maybe they're going to have a stone throwing contest, like a skipping stones over the water. Like who can skip a stone the most? Because smooth and round helps the stone skip over the water. So now I'm starting to see a little bit of a bigger picture here. Still got kids playing around. Now, look up a name. I'm going to give you this one for a freebie. Delacroix. De-la-Croix. And it means of the cross. They mentioned it twice here. So again, you don't have to know what it means, but you know it means something. I just told you, if it shows up 3 times, it means something. You might not know what those stones mean yet, but now you need to be paying attention because you know they mean something. And I said if it shows up once, you can take it off as happenstance. If it happens twice, it's going to be important. So we see Delacroix twice in the same sentence. It's important. Delacroix. They make sure we know how to pronounce it. Delacroix. So then I have to go over to Google, because Google's my friend. I don't want the person. Let's do... Oh, cool. It gave me the bouillon. Let's do Delacroix meaning. Oh, it's a French name, surname, last name. So we saw that. That was the last name. Meaning of the cross. Of the cross. So like Jesus? I wonder what Jesus and stones have in common. So if I were annotating here, I might write that. What do Jesus and stones have in common? I might not know. I know. You might not know. Ask the question anyway. It's all good. So, I've got some fields now. Got to keep reading. Soon the men began to gather, surveying their own children, speaking of planting and rain, tractors and taxes. Okay, I came from a farming community. I can see the men doing that. I get it. They stood together, away from the pile of stones in the corner, and their jokes were quiet, and they smiled rather than laughed. The women, wearing faded house dresses and sweaters, came shortly after their menfolk. Now, guys, this might not do it for you, but it does it for us women. Calling me womenfolk and I'm coming after the men, that makes my skin crawl. That makes me stop in my tracks like the race cars that back up in cartoons. So that sets a mood for me. Guys, it's okay if it doesn't set a mood for you, but it's all right. Got a mood for me. So, they, meaning the women, greeted one another and exchanged bits of gossip as they went to join their husbands. Soon, the women standing by their husbands began to call their children, and the children came reluctantly, having to be called 4 or 5 times. Now, if you a mama, you understand this. Just saying. Bobby Martin ducked under his mother's grasping hand and ran, laughing back to the pile of stones. There's those stones again. His father spoke up sharply, and Bobby came quickly and took his place between his father and his oldest brother. So, Mama calls, kids ignore. Daddy calls, kids come running in a bag. First time. Mama has to do it 4 times. Still doesn't get any response. Daddy gets involved. All of a sudden something happens. So now I have a personal connection to the story. Because I have been in that position where I had to call my kids 4 times. My husband walks into the room and just says one of their names in a particular tone, and all 3 of them show up like good little soldiers. Meanwhile, I've been dealing with them all day long. So I have a particular approach to this. This is my opinion. This is me bringing text into the story. You might not think it's bad that there are men folk and women folk coming behind their husband. That's okay. It doesn't mean it has to be there. You can acknowledge that it exists without agreeing with it, though. So, let's look at our questions here. What is the mood of the townspeople as they gather for the lottery? They're mostly lighthearted and friendly. I would say I saw that. They are all serious and sad. I didn't really see that. They are nervous and scared. I didn't really see that. They are completely quiet. No, I saw them talking and gathering, talking to their each other about rain, tractors, and taxes, and then gossiping. So, obviously, our answer has to be A. But notice question 8, because I've asked that question now, might be something that you have to pay attention to. So anytime, even in our textbook, if you come to a story and it has questions after it, a good rule of thumb is to read the questions to see what things you should be looking out for. So maybe if I had asked you to look at these questions in the right-hand column before actually going through the story, or starting in the story, you might have already known I should be paying attention to the roles of men and women. So I've kind of given you a heads up, but I'm stopping there. So you get no more reading from me. I hope you enjoy the lottery as much as I do. So what are my expectations for you this week? Well, I want you to review the syllabus. You need to know what's going on. You're going to have to watch this video. That's the resource I was telling you about. You need to read all of these sections. You have an initial discussion post, and then 2 responses. A minimum of 2 responses is due by the end of the week, and then you have a reading quiz. So if we go over to the modules, you'll see the week 1 tasks. That's everything that we just talked about. You'll see that I have the week 1 discussion topic. And in the week 1 discussion topic, you're going to look at this like a 3-2-1. So this is coming from the first 3 sections of your reading. You're going to discuss 3 takeaways from chapters 1, 2, and 3 reading. And you can look for things that you agree or disagree with close reading, annotating, things you've done in the past. But consider that reading-writing connection thoroughly as you go through that. The next part of your discussion will be 2 new ideas that you have learned from reading this, what you're going to take going forward and how that might help you not only in this course, but in other courses as well. And then ask 1 burning question. It could be from your reading specifically. It could be about something that I've said in this lecture, but you definitely want to give your reader something to respond to. So that's your initial post. Then you have to respond to at least 2 classmates to get full credit. If you read the syllabus, you'll see that. In your response to your classmates, if you note that you have a similar takeaway, by all means discuss that. If you note that you hadn't thought about the new idea, but now that they brought it to the forefront, that actually makes sense to you, and you think you might do that too, even if you think you might have an answer to their burning question, there gives you a lot to discuss there with your classmates. So make sure you read the syllabus section for that as well. So we're going to go back. You've got a literary terms quiz. So it is timed. This is just for me to get a handle on where you are. It is a very low weighted grade, so don't stress if you don't do well, but you do have about 15 minutes to take it. It's only like 10, 12 words, maybe 13. So I don't mind if you Google as long as you understand them. And then you have your week 1 reading annotations. So that's where you turn in either this document, handwritten, or you turn in your pages of your textbook like this. So you can do them as screenshots, or you can do them as uploading a PDF. It's really easy from your phone. If you don't know how to do that, then by all means, let me know. But this should be fairly straightforward. So, also, don't forget you got to do your course activity verification, and that's due by Tuesday. That's from the school, so they won't drop you from the roster. So every week you come in, you're going to see the tasks and assignments for that week. Then you'll see your discussion topic. You might have a quiz. It might also be some type of writing piece here. And then reading annotations. But there's always going to be a discussion. Always. And almost always reading annotations. Just so that I can track your thinking. So if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns about what you're going to be doing this week, please feel free to reach out to me. But hopefully I've given you a good place to start and you feel pretty confident. If you guys have any questions, again, please text me with your full name and the course number you're in. If you need to text me, or you can email me at my email with Columbia. All right. Again, you guys have a great week. I'm glad to get started.